One of my new favorite places in Japan is a place called Tottori. It's unique because it's probably one of the few, or maybe the only real places you can see extensive sand dunes in Japan. Basically, it looks like a desert, one of those sort of movie-esque desert areas, but it's not really a desert because it's right next to the beach, and in many ways, it looks kind of more like just a beach, but with sand dunes at the beach. And I think that alone makes it one of the coolest places I've ever seen in my entire life. Primarily because, number one, I've never actually seen real sand dunes in my life. And number two, I do really love just the beach scenario. It's usually very beautiful, like being near the ocean. And also just, it was a sunny day, so that definitely helped because I actually looked at some photos that my friend took because she also visited the same place while it was a cloudy day. And unfortunately, like just comparing my photos with hers, it felt like two completely different places. And I was kind of lucky for this because there is a story behind this trip. Unfortunately, on the first day we were planning on being there and seeing the sand dunes, we did not actually do that because we were going to go on a tour. Like we were following a tour, or we signed up for a tour, and it ended up being, or our train to that tour from Himeji area was canceled because of a typhoon. If you don't know, typhoons happen once in a while in Japan, enough to the point where they even have something called typhoon season. So that's something to be wary of. We unfortunately booked this trip like way ahead of time, so we couldn't tell what was going to happen. But due to that typhoon and some unforeseen events, we ended up joining that tour like later on, which skipped the sand dunes part. But in a way, that was actually a blessing in disguise because we decided to shift around some plans and see the Tottori sand dunes the next day, while it was actually sunny. But anyways, during the tour, we saw the Sand Museum at Tottori as well. That was actually a very, very, very unique experience. I don't think, like, usually when I think of museums, I mean, these days when I'm older, like, I do appreciate museums and I do like going to them, but I feel like the stigma from my past is still kind of there. Like, I still kind of feel like, okay, it's a museum. Like, it doesn't strike me as that interesting. But this is one of the few museums where, like, I 100% know what I just saw because everything there was incredibly fresh and unique. Like everything was made out of sand, just a lot of sand sculptures, sand statues, and they had like a whole theme going on. And apparently every year they change it, so you know that what you're seeing, it's not going to last. And in a way that makes it just more rare and more unique of an experience. And then from there, we went to go pick some fruit. There was this guy that was explaining a whole lot about, I think, pears, but I did not understand a lot of it, unfortunately, because he was speaking all in Japanese. Most of the people on this tour were actually on the older side, and they were pretty much all Japanese. I was the only foreigner on that bus. After that, for the tour, we went to see some sort of market, and from there, we just stayed at a hotel. And then the next day we went back and actually saw the sand dunes for the first time. And that was truly, truly beautiful. One of the things that I regret was actually not spending more time there. I think we only spent about 2 hours there, and I felt like that was not enough. Honestly, rewatching a lot of the videos that I took, I kind of want to go there again and just stay there like maybe for half the day until the sun sets, if that's even allowed. And apparently you can take some photos with camels as well. I think at some points you might even be able to ride them. I'm not entirely sure, but I saw some camels, and that was the first time I've ever seen camels in my life too. Like in real life, not just like through a video or a movie. It's a very, very cool experience. There were definitely a good amount of people, but because of how like big the sand dunes are, they aren't actually that big. Like I think you can walk from one end of the sand dunes to the other end in less than an hour if you really try to. I believe that's what the map said, or at least it's around that amount of time, depending on how fast you walk. But a lot of people weren't really near the center of it. They were closer to the ocean, which is definitely the more beautiful side for sure. We took some nice videos and photos there, just me running around. It's such a unique experience. It's like the wind that you feel, the little sands that are being blown by the winds and sort of hitting your legs. So try not to wear shorts. The sand might hurt a little bit, but it just felt really, really good, and it was truly one of the like most beautiful places I've seen in Japan. Like, it doesn't even seem like it is supposed to be in Japan, if that makes sense. But I highly recommend checking out this place. After we visited, we went to like a nearby place in Tottori. I think it was still in Tottori. Like, there was a Ryokan that we stayed at that was super, super nice. That included like this crab dinner and just a whole bunch of other things for that dinner. It felt very, very fancy. We were wearing yukatas as well. It was honestly a very, very amazing experience overall. So those are just some things that you can add on to the experience while you're in Tottori. I can go ahead and link down below the ryokan that we stayed at. I actually don't know what it is, so I'll have to ask my girlfriend. But it's not an affiliate link or a sponsor or anything like that. It's just a really, really nice ryokan that we stayed at. And there was also one other place in Tottori that I really loved. It was a garden area, and something about gardens in Japan are surprisingly way more beautiful than I would expect. Like, sometimes I think garden and some sort of ordinary, like, oh, just a bunch of flowers comes to my mind, but it's nothing like that at all. It's, of course, there are a lot of flowers and a lot of just nature like scenery, but there's also really nice architecture, really cool design, and just extra things that you wouldn't expect from a garden area. So I'll go ahead and also link that below. I actually don't know what it's called again. I feel like I rely a little bit too much on my girlfriend sometimes when we go on these trips, but next time I'll try to be a bit more proactive about at least remembering the names and also forming some plans to do for us as well. But this garden was definitely one of my favorites and one of the most beautiful gardens I've seen for sure. So definitely give it a visit if you're around Tottori. And that was basically my experience while traveling in Japan. It was one of my favorite like 2 days or 2 to 3 days that I spent while visiting Japan this time around. Let me know down in the comments if you've ever actually been to Tottori and what you did there, as well as just other places in Japan that you feel are really, really worth visiting that aren't talked about as much. That's it for this video. I'll catch you guys in the next one.